Let us try to understand in each postulate what is Dalton trying to tell us. So first of all matter is made up of very tiny particles called atoms which participate in a chemical reaction. So first of all, if you take any matter, what is the meaning of a matter? Matter means anything which has a mass and takes space or occupies space. That thing can be called as occupy space. That thing is called as matter. All matter is made up of very tiny particles called atoms. So for your understanding, I'm writing like this, but you can't see an atom with your bare eyes and even using any kind of equipment. So here, if you consider this as a matter, a whole thing as a matter, and each element has its own atoms. So if you take into consideration like hydrogen is an element, and if you take a closed container and it contains a hydrogen gas, these are nothing but the molecules of hydrogen, and each molecule of hydrogen contains two atoms of hydrogen. Each hydrogen atom participates in a chemical reaction. If you are going to react hydrogen with something, then each and every hydrogen atom can take part in a chemical reaction. To make you understand easily, let us consider a simple chemical reaction where hydrogen reacts with chlorine to form hydrochloric acid. So here an atom from here and atom from here combines together to form a molecule of hydrochloric acid. In his second postulate, he says that atoms are indivisible particles which cannot be created or destroyed in a chemical reaction. So this postulate actually, Dalton's atomic theory is not 100% accurate, because this postulate is actually proven wrong when atom was further divided into subatomic particles, which we will learn in our next videos. But we can understand this thing, that is, the atoms cannot be created or not be destroyed. That is law of conservation of mass. You can't destroy an atom or you cannot create a new atom. So here in this postulate, what he did is simple. If you take an example of ethyl alcohol, and if you burn in the presence of oxygen, what happens? It will burn completely. So does that make destroying of a molecule? So here we are not destroying the ethyl alcohol. The whole of the ethyl alcohol is getting converted into carbon dioxide and water. So if you balance the chemical equation, we get to know that all the carbon atoms, all the oxygens, as well as all the hydrogens are converted into some other product. So this means you cannot create or destroy an atom. Atoms of given element are identical in mass and chemical properties. That is, if you take a single element, it contains lakhs together, thousands together of atoms of same kind, right? So atoms of a given element are identical in mass and chemical properties. That is, if you take this as an example of a sodium metal, so this piece of sodium metal has thousands and lakhs to millions together of sodium atoms. And if you could take a single atom, one single atom of sodium, that sodium atom has the same property of an sodium atom which was taken from here. That means if you throw this atom in water, it catches fire. Likewise, this atom also catches fire if you throw that into water. So What does that mean? That means their chemical properties are same irrespective of the sodium metal. If you take a sodium metal from India, if you take a sodium metal from Africa or somewhere else around the world. And likewise, their atomic masses are always same, that is 22. Hope you understood that. So let's move on to the next point, that is atoms of different elements have different masses and chemical properties. So here you can understand easily that atom of sodium is totally different from that of the atom of oxygen. How can you say that? So simple thing, if you throw sodium into water, it catches fire, whereas oxygen is a gas, sodium is a metal, and oxygen is a non-metal. So you have already learned how to differentiate between metals and non-metals in our early videos. If you haven't seen that, you can check it over here. So chemical property of oxygen is that it helps in combustion, whereas sodium does not help in combustion. You can take it as a chemical property. And next thing is that a single atom of sodium has an atomic mass of 22, whereas a single atom of an oxygen has an atomic mass of 16. So this postulates holds good, that is atoms of different elements have different masses and chemical properties, where this catches fire in water, whereas oxygen can get dissolved in water. So these are the different chemical properties. So let's move on to the next one, that is atoms combine in a ratio of small whole numbers to form a compound. That is, atoms combine with each other, that is atoms of two different elements combine together in a simple small whole numbers to form a compound, like hydrogen and oxygen combine together in a ratio of 2:1, which gives us water. So whole numbers are nothing but 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. So this example also holds good for this postulate as well, because here the relative number and kinds of an atoms are constant in a given compound. That is, these atoms follow a constant ratio in which they combine together to form a compound. That is, water is a compound. To make water, 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen combine in a definite specific ratio to form water, the H2O. So what did we understand by Dalton's atomic theory? So we understood that matter is made up of very tiny particles called atoms. Atoms are indivisible particles, but later on it was proved to be wrong. We cannot create or destroy an atom in a chemical reaction. Atoms of a given element are identical in mass and chemical properties. Atoms of different elements have different masses and different chemical properties. Atoms combine in a ratio of small whole numbers to form compounds, and relative number and kinds of atoms are constant in a given compound. That's all in this video. We'll meet you in my next video. Keep watching. Thank you. Happy learning.